Howdy and welcome to section 10.4, use square roots to solve quadratic equations. But before we solve quadratic equations, we are going to begin a little investigation. First, we're going to start with x equals 4. And now when we have x squared, we have 4 times 4. Well, 4 times 4 is 16. Now, let x equal a negative 4. So an x squared would be negative 4 times negative 4, still equaling though a 16. Now when we have a square root, this is a square root sign of 16, this square root undoes any squares, so the square root of 16 is a positive negative 4. Why? Because a positive 4 times 4 is 16, and the square of a negative 4, negative 4 times negative 4 is 16. So 16 can be multiplied to either by 4 times 4 or negative 4 times negative 4. And finally, a square root of an x squared, this square root undoes this square, so the square root of an x squared is x. So now let's get to some quadratic equations. The first one, where we have 2x squared equals 8. Before I get to this x squared, I'm going to treat it just like a normal x. So now here I have 2x equals 8. The first thing I'm going to do is to get the x by itself, so divide by 2. Now in our situation, this isn't really an x. It is a x squared that I got by itself. So I have x squared equals 4. Well, how do we undo an x squared? How do we undo an x squared? We have to square root it. So we're going to go ahead and square root both sides, square root both sides to come up with x equals a positive negative 2. We have to remember that it's a positive negative. A square root of a normal number gives us a positive and a negative answer. Jumping to number 2, again we have to solve for m squared. We are going to get m squared by itself on one side of the equal sign, so we have to add 18 to both sides. We bring down the m squared to get and set it equal to 0. How do we undo a square? We have to square root both sides. So here we come up with m equals 0. The square root of 0 is still 0. And finally, number 3, we have to get b squared by itself, so we subtract 12 from both sides to get b squared equals a negative 4. Again, how do we undo a negative, or how do we undo the square? We have to square root both sides. And again, we have b equals a, oh wait, we have to stop. Look, we're square rooting a negative 4. Well, what times itself gives us a negative 4? Does 2 times 2? 2 times 2 is 4, so that doesn't give us a negative 4. How about a negative 2 times a negative 2? Again, that gives us a positive 4. So here we have no solution for b. Again, no solution. You can write it out or use a symbol for no solution. Next example, we have number 4, where 4z squared equals 9. Here, we have to get the z squared by itself, so we have to divide each side by 4 to come up with z squared equals 9 over 4. Again, to undo a square, we have to square root both sides. We get z equals, now this square root goes to both the 9 and the 4, top and bottom of the fraction. So it's going to be, again, a positive negative square root of 9 over the square root of 4, which leads us to positive negative. Well, the square root of 9 is 3, and the square root of 2 is 2. So z equals a positive negative 3/2. And for number 5, again, we have 49b squared plus 64. We have to get this b squared by itself, so I'm going to subtract the 64 over to the other side to come up with 49b squared equals a negative 64. How do you get b squared by itself? You have to divide both sides by 49, so I'm going to divide both sides by 49 to get b squared equals a negative 64 over 49, running out a little bit of room there. How do you undo a square? You have to square root both sides. You have to square root to undo a square. Well, again, we have a negative. We have a negative inside the square root, which we can't do yet. So b is, or has, no solution. Next, you have to be careful when reading our directions, because now it says solve the equation and round the solution to the nearest hundredth. The nearest hundredth is the second decimal place. So again, we're going to solve for x squared by subtracting 4 to the other side to come up with a x squared equals 10. How do you undo a square? You have to square root it. So then x equals positive negative square root of 10. Well, what's the square root of 10? The square root of 10 is 3.16 rounded to the nearest hundredth, and that is a positive negative 3.16. Now we're on the home stretch here. Now we're going to solve another equation with parentheses, right? Treat these parentheses just like you would treat that x squared. How do you get those parentheses by itself? You have to divide by 2 to get our parentheses now finally by themselves, x minus 2, that squared equals 9. How do you undo a square? You have to, whoops, I'll finish my square root. You have to square root a square. So we're left with x minus 2 equals a positive negative 3. So now we have x minus 2 equals a positive negative 3. We're not quite done yet because we have to get that x by itself. So we have to add 2 to both sides, but look, it's a positive negative 3. So I'm going to break that apart a little bit further to go x minus 2 equals a positive 3, and then a x minus 2 equals a negative 3. So we're going to start with the blue equation first. Add 2 to both sides to come up with x equals 5. And then for the green guy, we're going to add 2 again to both sides. But this time, we're going to get x by itself equals a negative 1. So our two solutions for this are x equals 5 and negative 1. Jumping to 8, so very quickly. How do we get the parentheses by itself? Whoa, that's a crooked line. We divide by 6 on both sides. So we have x minus 4 squared equals 7. How do you undo the square? You have to square root both sides to get x minus 4 by itself equaling, then the square root of 7 is a positive negative. Since 7 is not a perfect square, I'm going to put positive negative 2.65. Now again, we have a positive negative answer, and x is not by itself. So I'm going to break this up again into two answers, where we have x minus 4 equals 2.65 and x minus 4 equals a negative 2.65. So here we go. Let's solve for x with both of them. Add 4 for the blue guy to both sides to come up with x equals 6.65. And for the green guy, add 4 to both sides, add 4 to both sides to come up with x equals actually 1.35. That's an ugly looking 1, but it's a 1.35. So our two answers are 6.65 and 1.35. And finally, we are asked to find the radius of this circle that has an area of 21 pi meters squared. And remember, the formula for the area of a circle is pi r squared. I'm going to plug the area of the circle that they give us into the words area of the circle. So this guy is going right here, 21 pi equals what? Well, what's the formula for the area of the circle? It's pi r squared. Well, now how do I get this r squared? By itself, I have to divide by pi. So I'm going to divide by pi on both sides. Now, what is, let's say, 3 divided by 3? It's 1. What is 4 divided by 4? Anything divided by itself is going to be 1. So our pi's are going to cancel out, leaving us with just a 21, and that's going to equal r squared because we got that by itself. Now, how do you get just a r? You have to square root both sides to get r equals, and then the square root of 21 is a positive negative 4.583. Now we have to think about this before we write both answers down. Does a negative radius make sense? Can we have a negative distance? I don't think so. So then the only logical answer that we have left is 4.583 meters for our radius. And that concludes our lesson for today.